Hi, and welcome back to Katie's Corner in Space and today's installment of Star Trek Lower Decks Standout Scenes. It seems every week this season I've been able to draw on some way on the Trek of the past when referencing scenes. Easter egg has been dropped in here and there, or just bam, it's a crossover. And that's been kind of the theme of the season, which we knew going in. But it's only season 3 and Lower Decks had its own callback episode thanks to one rebellious exocomp who ran rather than help the Cerritos and its crew back in the finale of season 1 called No Small Parts. Now, to see in the opening a short retelling and what Peanut Hamper had been up to all this time was an interesting treat, but the story that fills the time gap between then and now is what this episode was all about. And it was an interesting story if nothing else. Though today's episode holds the title of A Mathematically Perfect Redemption, callback to Exocomp's mathematically perfect name, I feel the episode could have also been called The Long Con. However, I suppose that would give away too much information. The story itself was extremely different than the previous 6, and it was all about one character. And of course, that character was Peanut Hamper. She found herself stranded first in space, built a warp-capable nacelle which she rode away from the Drukmani salvage ship, and suddenly found herself stranded on a non-Federation planet among bird people, the Areore. They're the descendants of a race who left their planet full of technology and war to create a quieter life. Since the people's resettling, they've been taught to fear technology. Enter Peanut Hamper, who was not only tech, but a jerk from the get-go. Snarky comments mixed in with downright rudeness. Honestly, if things kept going that way, I'm sure even the leader would have lost his exuberance for her. Luckily, she was at the very least well-trained and replicate sweet treats along with just basic health care. And oh boy, what a difference did something that simple make in this small community. In no time at all, even the xenophobic son, Rada, becomes infatuated with Peanut Hamper, falls in love with the stranded ensign, and reveals his people's origin. Unfortunately, this revelation fuels a plan Peanut Hamper compiles to earn her way back into Starfleet as a celebrated hero rather than an inmate at a penal colony convicted of desertion. Enter once again the Drukmani, who were sent a tip on all the salvageable ancient ships in the caverns under the Areore trees and are now interrupting Rada and Peanut Hamper's wedding. As the Drukmani begin to pull up their salvage via tractor beam, it looks like, the Cerritos has received a distress call from Peanut Hamper, and they head to assist. The village, having no means at hand to defend themselves, panic and depend on whatever Peanut Hamper has in mind to save them. And here's when things get messy. Peanut Hamper does head off to save them by disabling the Drukmani ship on site in a fearless ramming and entering. All are saved and the Areore begin to celebrate, only to be contacted by the Drukmani captain wondering why he's getting so much resistance after the invitation. One he can prove came from none other than Peanut Hamper. The con is over. She's been found out. The captain, Shax, and Tendi were there to witness it all, and after some fumbled introductions made by Freeman, our brave little toaster, because I keep saying toaster, I mean Hamper, was thrown into cyber prison after all the area are saved by none other than their future leader, Rada. And cyber prison, it's literal. It's a prison for the egomaniacal computers who've tried to ruin civilizations, attack Starfleet or the Federation, basically just every bad computer we've seen up to this point in the Trek timeline, which I just love. Now, there was a lot happening in this week's episode, which made it very complicated when it came to picking scenes. Much like the engineer's vacation on Dove, there weren't so many major scenes as there were several bits which, when put together, made a magnificent point or a slow burn joke. When it comes to peppering the episode with continuous chuckles, it was all Peanut Hamper. Yes, I still laugh when I say her name, nearly always get it wrong. Unfortunately, this revelation fuels a plan I keep wanting to say Peanut Toaster. It's not Peanut Toaster. Enter Peanut Toaster. But I also get a kick out of her downright snarkiness. Everything is an inconvenience and could be better, and oh boy, does she want to point it out. All of it. And that attitude did not stop, nor should it have. There's something to be said for the sanity of people who can filter their words. Peanut Hamper, yeah, she lacks a filter. I think that's called a clue. On the other hand, she also made herself useful, then liked, then beloved by the people. Saving the leader with an anti-venom was a convenient in, and she played that angle for all it was worth, from treating the kiddos to sweets to treating the citizens with cures. Though there wasn't much of it, each act of kindness stood out on its own because it was such a huge deviation from the peanut hamper we knew. I think that's called a clue too. Now, I can't talk about standout scenes without adding that naughty intimacy scene. Why, I was shocked at the Nah, I can't even pretend to be shocked. It was too funny. I'm sure this kind of thing would have to be a major point of discussion when dating interspecially. I mean, they do teach xenobiology at Starfleet, but I feel like there should also be a course in just good old sex ed across the universe. You know, like Alien Nation. But then we wouldn't have entertaining lines like this.
But our pieces are so different.
Ears are complicated.
In my opinion, this scene had the best mix of lustiness, confusion, and comedy. I was thoroughly satisfied. Okay, too much? On to the next scene, worthy of an extra look. Now, because this episode in itself was different, I thought I'd have issues really breaking this stuff down, but this one was a no-brainer. Yet, it got me thinking. When Rada takes Peanut Hamper into the caverns under the trees to reveal his people's past, I had to go back and take a little look because I recognized those ships. I swear I see a Romulan warbird and maybe a Klingon bird of prey. Admittedly, I'm more of a cultural/species nerd when it comes to Trek rather than the ships, but I'll be darned if that would place the escape of Rada's people at a roughly recent time in the past, maybe only a few hundred years, which took me on a path to the Xindi and the lost avians of their home planet. While none are known to escape, that does not necessarily mean some didn't. Not only that, but if the avians did escape, they could have easily gone anywhere because it would have been before the Guardians' instructions to build the spheres which eventually created the Expanse. However, going by the relics shown on Enterprise, including an avian skull complete with teeth, I sadly found this train of thought disappointing. While there were several fun and poignant moments, including a jealous girlfriend who promptly disappeared from the story after being introduced, I don't think there can be much argument when it comes to the standout scene of this episode, and that would have to be Rada's captaining of one of his ancestors' ships to deter the Drukmani from continuing their salvage goals. He managed to save the Cerritos, who'd answered Peanut Hamper's planned distress signal, but in turn found themselves in need of a hand, and Rada's decision to take up technical arms and defend his people from alien invaders like his ancestors was truly a hero move. Plus, I really loved the artwork and action in this scene. It was impactful, which is why it makes my list as number 1. However, much like I often do, I have to give out an honorable mention, and that would be the closing scene as Peanut Hamper meets those of like minds, or at least like compartments in which to maniacally plan the destruction of one's enemies. Now, it was real fun to have another look at the storage type used for devices gone wild, but I'm really concerned. I mean, as a physical security hobbyist, I have to say between the oftentimes repetitive passcodes to the completely networked computer systems throughout a ship with no indication of an air gap despite the frequency in which rogue computer systems have completely taken over multiple starships. I mean, as much as I like Starfleet, I don't think I'd feel entirely secure on a ship, strictly speaking. But housing criminally insane computers that, shock, can communicate with each other? I mean, even a freshman taking introduction to microcomputing knows that's a bad plan. But it's definitely worth a mention because I feel like many other small moments through the season, it will be brought back later in some form. If not on Lower Decks, well, there are a few other shows to toss some insanity on. Whether we see our thief once again, Peanut Toaster, or even Mesk, I still feel like some of these people and their wacky ways will tie into future episodes, maybe even the season's finale. If you miss some of those observations and the characters too interesting not to see again, or if you simply can't get enough of those crazy moments that made the episode, then check out some of these videos, and I'll see you there. whatever peanut toaster again,